I don't think it's very controversial to say that as DNC chairman, Tom Perez has been a complete and utter disaster. Because if you are going to run the DNC, a corrupt organization from top to bottom, I think that especially after what happened in 2016, one of your number one goals should be to win back the trust of progressives. Has he been successful at doing that? Absolutely not. And it's because he's not really even trying. I mean, back in 2017, what did he do? He purged progressives from high-ranking positions within the DNC in order to replace them with establishment loyalists who also happened to endorse him when he was running to be the DNC chairman over Keith Ellison. So, I mean, he has repeatedly shunned progressives. He's done things to make himself suspect, like endorsing Cynthia Nixon over Andrew Cuomo when, as DNC chairman, I mean, you have a vested interest in remaining neutral because that helps you maintain your legitimacy. Now, he also reversed the DNC's recently adopted ban on fossil fuel contributions. So time after time, Tom Perez has shown that he's not serious about winning back progressives. In fact, he doesn't really care about that at all. He just wants to maintain the status quo. And really, the only positive news to come out of the DNC since he's been chairman has been that they voted to adopt the DNC's unity reform recommendations, and they substantially reduced the influence superdelegates will have going forward on presidential nominating processes. So that's important. But what else is he doing? What has he specifically done? Because that's what the DNC Unity Reform Commission recommended, and then the aggregate DNC voted to adopt those changes. But as chairman, what has he done to help build up the DNC's legitimacy and rebuild trust that the organization lost among progressives after 2016? Well, he actually is finally doing something that is a step in the right direction. Now, it's a small step, but it's a step in the right direction nonetheless. And as Daniel Morans of HuffPost reports, the Democratic National Committee issued rules Monday aimed at shoring up trust and its impartiality in the upcoming 2020 presidential nominating contest. The DNC plans to bar employees and officers from publicly endorsing any presidential candidates throughout what is expected to be a crowded intra-party competition for the job of taking on President Donald Trump. The rules would prohibit DNC staffers and officers from financial contributions to particular candidates, attendance of events that could suggest partiality, public statements or social media posts espousing presidential preferences, internal communications expressing views for or against Democratic candidates, and even gestures like displaying bumper stickers or lawn signs from individual campaigns. The DNC is committed to making sure that our 2020 nominating process is fair and transparent, said its chairman Tom Perez. These new policies will help ensure that there is no perception of partiality by the DNC during the campaign for the Democratic nomination. DNC CEO Seema Nanda sent a memorandum to DNC staff laying out the new guidelines on Monday afternoon. Patrice Taylor, the DNC's director of party affairs and delegate selection, sent a similar set of instructions to DNC officers. The rules aim to avoid a repeat of the 2016 presidential primaries when supporters of Senator Bernie Sanders were critical of the DNC for appearing to favor Hillary Clinton. Now, let's just be clear here. We weren't critical of the DNC because they, quote, appeared to favor Hillary Clinton. We were critical of the DNC because they did favor Hillary Clinton, not just vocally, but in practice, in allowing Hillary Clinton to take control of the DNC, their fundraising operation, and controlling the press releases that they release. That's not just the perception of bias and favoritism. It's outright allowing her to control the DNC. It's a rigged process. It's inherently flawed and biased. So they're kind of misrepresenting the story here by saying, oh, well, we just didn't like that it appeared as if there was some type of favoritism. No, there was favoritism. You can say it. It's undisputable. And in fact, if you don't admit to it, then I can't take you seriously. So look, what they're doing here is very, very important, but here's the thing. I don't necessarily care so much about their rules. I care that their actions will align with these rules because, look, the DNC charter mandates that the DNC chair remain neutral in the primary process, but that didn't stop Debbie Wasserman Schultz from doing everything she could to put her finger on the scale. So even if it's fundamentally important to enact rules like this to stop members of the DNC from doing things that make it seem as if they are biased, what we need is for you to actually follow through and follow these rules and make sure that there are repercussions for DNC members that violate their promise to remain impartial during the Democratic Party primary. Because here's the thing. If you believe in democracy, then you need to put that to the test and allow voters to have their say, let them vote. We don't need you to tip the scales in favor of one candidate over another. Just let it play out. And if your candidate loses, then your candidate loses, okay? We don't need you to rig the process. Now, is it true that the DNC doing this doesn't necessarily stop the establishment, the aggregate establishment, from still playing dirty? Well, no, because look at what the Californian Democratic Party did. They moved up their primary because they felt as if having an earlier primary in their state would favor someone like Kamala Harris. Now, they didn't overtly say this, but we know that that's what they're doing. Because Kamala Harris, she will likely, overwhelmingly likely, will be running for president in 2020. And she's from the state of California, where you can pick up a lot of pledged delegates if you win that state. So by moving their primary up, that benefits her. So I don't necessarily think that this will negate from any other dirty shenanigans and tricks that the party establishment is going to play, when it comes to state parties. But by and large, this still is important coming from the head of the Democratic Party. I mean, I think that this is really important, and it shows that he at least acknowledges the importance of building up trust. But don't just talk, act. We're still going to be watching. We're still going to be very, very skeptical of everything that you try to do, because it's not just that you lost trust among progressives. You absolutely took that trust, stepped on it, took a dump on it, and then wiped your ass with it. That's what you guys did in 2016. So it's going to take a lot to rebuild this trust after what you guys did just 2 years ago was absolutely not just immoral, but one of the most unethical things I think that the Democratic Party has ever done. So it's going to take a lot, but actually put this into practice and don't just say it. Nonetheless, I will give credit where it's due, because I do think this is a step in the right direction. As I said earlier, it's a small step in the right direction, but it's still a step in the right direction nonetheless. Let's just hope that they honor this new policy.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.